Welcome back to Made for More. I am your host, Holly J. Moore. I am a divorce lawyer on a mission to help you use the adversity in your life to show up as the best version of yourself. Aaron, are you over there?
I'm over here. Yeah, I know. I put another light in between us.
I can't even see you anymore.
What I liked about this morning, though, was we actually had our meeting. There are some times when I don't run in there for like, hey, what are we going to talk about this first segment?
Yes.
Nailed it today.
Yes. You came in for our pre-production meeting.
It's the only meeting I ever attend.
And sometimes you don't even attend that one.
Hey.
Yes. But why are we even talking about meetings?
We're talking about meetings because the guest today is all about, hey, how about we cancel all the meetings?
Well, I don't know if that's entirely what she's about, but she's all about keeping it simple. In the corporate structure in business, everything tends to just get more complicated over time. And as you add team members, like the communication gets more complicated, everything just gets more complicated. So she is all about simplifying everything. And I'm excited to talk to her about that today. And maybe we'll see where More Family Law Group has gone awry and made things a little bit too complicated.
I don't know if the firm has, because, you know, we hear a lot about, like, we're talking about meetings. Work is just meetings these days.
Yeah.
That's what I like about this firm is no meetings. It's great. It's great.
Well, we have a lot of meetings. You're just not in them.
Oh.
We are here today with Lisa Bodell, the founder and CEO of FutureThink. It's a company that helps companies embrace change and increase their capability for innovation. She is also the author of the book, Why Simple Wins. Lisa, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I love that you have tabs in the book.
I am a lifelong learner. I am always a student, so I can hardly ever read a book without like my highlighter and tabs and notes. So yes, I have, I've done my homework.
You have done your homework. Hopefully that's not a waste of time, because otherwise that's hours you'll never get back. You enjoyed it.
No, I did enjoy it. Not a waste of time at all. I'm excited for you to kind of bring, your knowledge, some of the stuff that I saw in the book, I'm sure you're going to talk about today.
Yep.
I am a business owner. I own a law firm. We actually represent our niche for our clients is actually business owners as well. So let's just kick it off by telling us, Lisa, why do we make things so complicated?
It's always with the best of intentions. That's what's so interesting about it is, we often create the beast that we become a slave to because we want to move faster. So we just add on the feature function. We don't have time to break things down and really evaluate them. Right. A lot of it is just the need for speed or to get it off our list. That's why we make it complicated. The other thing is fear. A lot of people, in our culture, it's cool to be busy.
Yes.
Right? That's a badge of honor. And more is what's valued. So you get rewarded and bonused, right, based on more, not less. So being able to get rid of things subtraction isn't seen as a positive. It's seen as a negative. And more people would be better off if we also evaluate or reevaluate work before we add on more. And I think that's a key message people need to be able to hear and embrace at work without fear.
Right. Well, one of the things that I thought was interesting in your book is it says a great deal of complexity is driven by something even more basic, our emotional needs.
Yes.
That's really interesting because, I think of, I know certainly like things always get more complicated. As you add team members to the team, it's like the communication matrix gets insanely more complicated.
100%.
As you add systems and policies and procedures, like everything just sort of, like bubbles up into this really sort of complicated, mishmash of stuff. But I never thought about it as being driven by emotional needs.
It is. And that's what's so interesting is, so we do a lot of work. My company is FutureThink. And the last 20 years, we've done work a lot in regulated industries. And what I mean by that is like with pharmaceuticals and bank and the intelligence community, like all the 3-letter agencies. Right. And because we figured if we can help them simplify, we can help anyone simplify.
You can help anybody, yeah.
Right. And so let's take legal, right, as a function.
Right.
I mean, there's you got to follow the laws. And that's
Yes.
true, but this isn't about the what of work. This is the how of work. And people seem to mix up, well, we're regulated, therefore we can't simplify.
Right.
But when you ask them what they spend their day doing, lawyers obviously a little bit more, they deal with the law. People say that they spend their day in meetings and
Yeah.
emails and report. These aren't rules for the most
Right.
part, right?
Right.
So, and you say why? And a lot of that is driven by risk, fear, power, control, and trust, right? That's why you're CCing so many people to cover your ass. It's why
Yes.
you're including so many people in the meeting because you don't want to exclude anybody. It's a
Right.
lot of emotions that drive it.
Yes.
And in addition to that, it's our inability to say no. And I think that's
Right.
another key thing that we should talk about.
Yes. You made me think of something because I realized when I was going through your book and kind of thinking about some of the stuff in your book, you kind of start off with this story of this guy who is like basically spends his days checking emails, attending meetings, and literally has zero time for any sort of creative or strategic thinking. And
Right.
you just all feel sort of like beaten down. We all feel beaten down by that, I think. But so I was kind of thinking about my days, and I realized I kind of have PTSD with my email. And, as a lawyer, like I know every time I go to check my email, there's going to be something that is maddening or shocking or, something that I have to deal with. And so, but what I've done over the years to deal with that is someone else triages my email. And so I might actually check my email like once a week or once every 2 weeks.
Oh my
And
God, that is amazing.
I know, but here's what I want to say about it is you have to let go of so many emotional things to do that, because you have to let go of control. You have to all the things that keep us tied into that email, you do have to let go of them, and it is a process.
This is not a conversation necessarily about time management. That's where people
Right.
get confused. They think like, oh,
Yeah.
well, if only I could be more productive. This
Yeah.
isn't about productivity and being organized, right?
Right.
Because at some point, people are organized and they are productive, but you can't spreadsheet your way out of this.
Right.
You
Yeah.
can't. And that's the
Yeah.
issue, which is we don't say no, we feel obligated. We have this addiction to busy and doing versus
Yes.
thinking.
Right.
Subtraction isn't part of the mantra. So all these things happen. And as much as we say, oh, I wish I wasn't included in that meeting, but then they have FOMO when they're not. Or I
Aaron.
wish my inbox wasn't full. But the
Yeah.
thought of letting someone else control the inbox, the control issue, is
Right.
terrifying to people because
Yes.
they want a sense of feeling in control versus
Yes.
out of control without
Right.
giving up control. So it's very interesting to me that you said you give someone control of your inbox, because that's a huge step. That's a huge step. And just like people spend so much time scrolling on Instagram, Outlook
Yeah.
is just as bad.
Right. Yeah.
It's just as addictive.
Yeah.
And I think we've got to start taking more control of our time, because most people are spending their days, they're not spending their days working, they're spending their days executing their calendar. And that's a
Right.
very different thing. It's basically
is.
just, I'm going to get through the day.
Right.
But are the things on your calendar worth your time? And most people say no. So then what are you
Right.
doing?
Yes. That's really, the question I always ask myself is, does this move the needle? Does me responding to all these different emails of people, wanting me to do this or asking me this like minor question or whatever, is this moving the needle for my business, for my life, for a case? And most of the time the answer is no. And I don't really like to do things that don't move the needle.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is what's so interesting about this is everyone will say it. You know what I mean? Like, yes, I wish I spent more time on valuable work. I wish I had more time for thinking, but then they don't question work because of fear, or obligation, or my boss won't let me. But the other issue is no one has defined for them or for themselves what meaningful work is. Like it's a catchphrase, right? So yeah, I wish I spent more time on meaningful, valuable things. And then when you ask them, because I'll ask the boss, what is that?
Right.
And they'll give me the 7-part, multi-part answer, because they're trying to sound smart, but they haven't really thought about it. So an exercise that's actually really productive for yourself and with your team is to define for you what meaningful work is.
Oh, okay.
And then from that, you'll say, to get you to that goal, move the needle, like you said, Holly. So what will I say yes to and what will I say no to? Because then you're starting to put boundaries around how you control your time. It's not being selfish.
Right.
It's actually being it's being goal-minded to do that.
Right.
And those small things can help you kind of set a compass, right? Rather than a clock for where you're going.
Yeah. Yeah. But that saying no thing is hard.
It is
Like,
hard.
Yeah.
Especially if you're not the boss, by the way.
Right. That's true. Yes. Yeah.
But so, and I'm originally from the Midwest, from Michigan and Illinois. So I'm like this practical Midwesterner. That's like
Okay.
everything I approach is like, oh, is that really true? Is it really, like, I'm the skeptic on this stuff. And the common sense answer to me is, look, if someone tells you to just say no, but doesn't tell you how, they're smoking something. I
Okay.
think if you're in control, if you're the boss, you would need to model the behavior, because that gets the fear away for people to say no.
Right.
And if you're not the boss, you have to figure out what are the lower level things you can start to say no to get comfortable with it, and use the phrase yes if. Because yes, I would be happy to come to that meeting, because you can't say no, if I could have more time, if we could trade off a priority, if you'd let me do this thing differently. So you start to get the context of balance in there versus just saying yes to everything. That's what most people do, is they say yes to everything.
Right.
Yes if is very powerful to try.
Okay. Yes if. I like it. So what do you think the top 3 things that businesses are sort of missing the mark on when it comes to making things too complicated?
Well, there's a few, I call it the complexity trap. And the kind of cultural or human normative things that leaders perpetuate, or we assume as employees, are that more is more valuable than valuable. Meaning we want more things versus just doing the important things.
Quantity over quality.
That. And then the second thing is we tend to spend more time internal than external. And so we have to shift that. Like, to be successful, we've got to be, our thinking or our day has to be spent looking outside more than it is inside. And what I mean by that is it's fine to have meetings and emails and reports. You have to have those things. That's how we work.
Right.
But if you're doing them just because it's how we've always done it, because it's helpful to have those numbers, but then you never take action on those reports, for example, or there's no decisions that come out of the meetings, then why are we doing them? Right. So that's sucking away time from external. The third thing is this addiction to doing overthinking. And I firmly believe that within companies, thinking is a daring act. Because I'll go out and I'll speak to people and I'll say, how many of you here, by raising your hands, wish that you had more time to think? Everyone raises their hand.
Yeah.
And then when you ask what's stopping them, there's this kind of self-reflection of, well, it's projects, it's priorities, it's too much workload, I'm scared. And we start to break those things down. And we realize that when it comes down to it, busy and doing is what's really valued. And if you were just sitting around thinking, people would think you're not working.
Right. Yes.
So, they're starting to change that within companies, like big organizations like Novartis and Sanofi, and where they are mandating deep work. I do it with my company, where I mandate 2 hours a week. Everyone has to block their calendar for deep work. And they can do that whenever they want. But I'm telling them it is their job to put boundaries on their time so they can get stuff done and don't have any excuses.
Right.
And that's really empowering, because most people have to sneak deep work on their calendars by putting some bogus meeting, right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And their outlook. So that's why we want to give people some really practical ways to signal it's okay to think and take away the fear.
Yeah. Well, in just kind of thinking about myself and my business, do you think one of the issues is like what the team might think? And the reason why I'm asking that is because I don't get to the office every morning at like 8:00, like the rest of the team does. I come in a little bit later. I might leave a little bit earlier. And, it has crossed my mind that like the team probably thinks, oh, like the boss just works a few hours a day. But truth be told, when I'm at home in the mornings after my kids go to school and nobody else is in the house, that's always when I have my best ideas. That's always when I have like my best judgment call. Like if we're, deciding if we need to make a big decision within the firm or something like that, that's always when I really get a lot of clarity about it. But I do think, the team probably thinks that I work a few hours a day and that's it. And lucky the boss just comes in at noon and leaves at 3, So do you think there's this sense of like even the leaders of the business or the organization fear this deep work, this thinking time because of what the team might think?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll tell you a story. We work with with Pfizer, and we helped train 40 of their simplicity champions to teach 40,000 people around the world to kill stupid rules.
Okay.
And the reason for that, really powerful stuff. Right?
Yeah.
And was because Albert, who's their CEO, before he was CEO, he ran innovation and simplicity.
Okay.
And one of his mantras, this illustrates exactly the point that you were getting at here. His mantras was, I only want you spending time on important things. So I want you to say no to meetings. And that's a great idea. Say no to meetings. Everyone's complaining about meetings. And a month later, he was really frustrated because they can see people's logs, right? They can see Outlook and measure people's time. Everyone was still going to meetings. And so he pulled his chief of staff aside and said, what's going on? And the chief of staff said, they still go to meetings because you still go to every meeting.
Oh.
And until you say no, they won't say no.
Yeah.
So that's the fear thing, right? Which is you can say it, but if you don't do it, they're not going to do it.
Right. Yeah.
So I think you're smart in terms of you need to reinforce the message, right, guys? It's not about how long you work, it's the outputs. And the second thing is that you said was really smart is when I ask people when and where they do their best thinking. What do you think they say, by the way? Let me just ask you.
I think they probably say at work. I don't know. Driving. In the shower.
In the shower.
Yes.
Driving.
Yeah.
On a run.
Yes.
Going to bed. Waking up. Drinking my coffee.
Yes.
So what's interesting is we get our best ideas when we are alone and when it's quiet.
Right.
And never have I ever had an answer where someone said, I get my best ideas. No one says at work.
Okay.
I
I thought maybe they would say that because they thought they were supposed to say that, but we all know that is not true.
Oh, well, let me tell you, I asked this question like anonymously. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yes.
Well, they just shout it out kind of thing.
Right.
But no one's like on a Teams call, do an email.
Right. Yes.
But what do they spend their time doing? Meetings and emails. So
yes.
It kind of shows the fact that if you are going to grow and you are going to innovate, you have to have time to think.
Right.
And if we do our best thinking when we're alone and it's quiet, either they better carve that out at work, or we got to realize that, people are doing that best thinking when they are on their own.
Yeah.
And it's important for us to preserve that as part of our culture and make it okay to do it. So I think what you're doing is modeling what you want for the rest of your team.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. But on that point, so, we are a law firm. We work on billable hours. I mean, this concept can't possibly apply to everyone, right? Like I can't have my paralegals at home till noon going, boss, I'm thinking.
You shouldn't. And by the way, I don't want my team doing that too. That's why I'm saying this isn't an excuse to not do work.
Right. Yes.
Because I pay my people to work and I expect outputs. And I was just thinking, if you're a lawyer and your billable hours, your whole model is on more.
Right. Yes. And actual tangible production.
So I think you do need to put some kind of boundaries around, though, what percentage of that's where you have to define it, should be for thinking and other kinds of work, because then that gives people permission, but it doesn't give them too much where they go to the extreme, like you said.
Right.
Well, I'm not going to come till noon now because you said. Right. And that's, you're always going to have a couple people like that, but those aren't going to be the people that perform.
Right.
The cool thing about simplicity is it's very transparent, and people that like complexity are the ones that aren't productive or aren't honest, because it lets them hide. Right. Simplicity is about transparency, and you can't hide. And the people that like it are the ones that you want on your team.
Yeah, that's very true. That's an excellent point.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are some practical steps that leaders could take today to start maybe, knocking off some of the complexity and making things more simple?
Sure. So there's so much. I would say, I mentioned kill a stupid rule, which I think is so powerful.
What does that actually, I guess it means what it says it means.
Yeah. The beauty of it is It's pretty,
self-explanatory.
Pretty self-explanatory. Yeah. So we created
Lisa, I was trying to make it more complicated. I'm like, Lisa, as an expert in this field, do explain what you mean by this phrase. Like, what the heck?
What the heck? Exactly. So we try and make it as, it's almost like you just say it to people and they're like, that's a great idea. Why didn't I think of that? Right. That's what so much of this is why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
Because of the complexity trap. Well, Kill a Stupid Rule is, here it is, get your team together and you're going to have I could say a half-hour meeting, but I would plan a separate hour meeting because this will be productive. And ask people to think in advance of if they could kill any 2 rules at work, what would they be? And the idea is it has to be in their sphere of control, meaning like when I go to, if I'm at Google or I'm at First Horizon Bank or something, you don't want them complaining about mothership. Like, the travel policy, my computer sucks. That's not what we're getting at. We're getting at the work in your control that your team can agree on they want to change. And the other thing is you can't touch regulated rules, right? You'd go to jail. So, be reasonable.
Right.
So people will come up with, this is why you want an hour. They will not stop. They will come up with so many rules. Like I just mentioned First Horizon Bank because I was down there this week with their top several hundred leaders. And I just shouted out to them, I'm going to give you 5 minutes at your tables to think of rules that you'd like to kill. And at the end of the 5 minutes, everyone asked for more time. Like, this is so fun. I can't believe it. I can't,
Yeah.
So, but what they come up with aren't rules. That's the thing. It's annoyances, it's cultural norms, it's time sucks. Okay. So killing a stupid rule will get you immediate low-hanging fruit, and it's a cultural change. It's very cool. I would definitely do that as one of the things to start.
Okay, killing a stupid rule. Love it. Okay, so I don't know if you can even speak to this, but I would imagine like you are able to implement some of this type of thinking into your personal life. Is that true?
It is.
So how can the rest of it, because, again, in thinking about the episode, I'm like, okay, yes, corporate life gets complicated. Got it. But I'm like, what really gets me, what I have not mastered yet, is how complicated having 3 kids in multiple activities and, dinners and pickups and drop-offs and this, that, and the other, and the emails from the teachers and the 45 different apps that you have to communicate with the school. Like, that's really what gets me. And I think it's a lot of people, even if you don't own a business. So can you speak to that?
Yes. And it's interesting because my publisher had such a pushback with me. I wanted to have a whole separate chapter just on personal complexity. And they said no.
Oh.
And I thought
missed opportunity.
Yeah, I just thought it was dumb. I thought it was really dumb.
Yeah.
And because many of the things that I talk about in the book, you can use in your personal life. And the one anecdote, I can't remember if it's in the book actually, but I have separate ones. I talked about carpools. And I said, the bane of my existence is carpools because remember, being organized doesn't mean being simplified.
Right.
I don't need an app to remind me of the reminder and then have somebody cancel that day. Like, just do the damn carpool. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
So stupid.
Right.
So, and for the sign up and all that, believe me, I actually proposed to our school that I wanted to get the whole staff together and do Kill a Stupid Rule with them. Yes. And they were like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And I wanted to redo even like the PTA. I said, why don't you guys just bunch everything up front at the beginning of the year, and I can tick off all the things I need to pay for and all the things I can do and all the permission slips. And then I have them all done at once. Like, give me the packet and let's get it done and have a great year.
Yeah. Yes.
Right? So there's a bunch of things. There's time boxing, there's batching. But if you can't control that, right? Some of those things are out of your control.
Yeah, true.
I think a lot of things personally are done out of obligation and guilt. And it's more so personally than it is professionally.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is looking at your calendar and really reevaluating what's one thing I can stop doing. And if you said something like, is this moving the needle? There's so much we do, this is kind of a working parent thing at schools, we do out of obligation. And there's so many activities that are just activities. And you're like, this isn't going to add any value to anything. It's just an excuse. Yeah. And I started as my kids I'm an empty nester now. They're grown and flown. I started saying no to that as they got older because I think you have more confidence, right? To be like, this is
Yes.
bullshit. So,
Yes.
and I stopped carpools, and some people were pissed, but
Yeah.
I couldn't, their ego, it's not okay to waste my time.
Right.
It's not okay to waste my time. So I started being more selfish by saying no to certain things. Carpools was a big one.
Hmm.
Entertaining. I love to entertain, but I would do it with much smaller groups and only the
Right.
people that reciprocated, by
Yes.
the way.
Hmm.
Right? And I
Hmm.
would make everything locationally convenient for me.
Yeah.
We don't need to, I live in New York, right? And everything doesn't need to be a big outing into the city. We can just come and sit on my back patio and have a good time.
Right.
So
Yes.
I'm just trying to eliminate things as much as I can
Hmm.
in terms of obligations. Because
Yeah.
there's a great rule, like if you wouldn't say yes to it, doing it tonight, are you going to want to do it in a month? You're not.
Yeah.
Those are just
Huh.
some ideas of what you can
Okay.
start to do.
And so was that, I'm just thinking because I know there's like a fair amount of moms listening to this too.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of pressure, like societal pressure to do all the things.
That's the hard
So,
part.
yeah. So
Because you
have,
can't not show up. You don't want to be the only one that doesn't show up.
right. Yes.
But there are some people that I think we tend to do a lot more than is necessary.
Yes, I agree.
So the idea with complexity is there is necessary complexity. And there
Mm-hmm.
are some things, especially out of obligation and guilt, that you will do as a parent.
Right.
100%. If anyone
Yeah.
tells you no, I mean, sometimes I hear these people and I'm like, well, your kid's going to think you're not there. So that's a
Right.
problem too.
Yes. That's, yeah.
But it's the unnecessary. That's the
Mm-hmm.
goal.
Right.
And like, how many times is enough for you to show up at school? I mean,
Right.
the ones where everybody's there, yeah, be there. But
Yeah.
the ones where you're supposed to the sign up genius and all this other stuff, cut
Yes.
it in half.
Yeah.
Cut it in
Yeah.
half.
Yeah.
No one, believe my kids are gone. No one will remember. No one
Right.
remembers it, but you don't
Yeah.
feel it in the moment. That's all.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I
If your
love
kid's
that.
going to remember, that's the difference. That's my mark.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. That is the standard. Like, will it matter to your kid? If so, show up.
Yep.
If it won't matter to them, cross it off the list.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So how can, you've mentioned this thing in our culture where like we really glorify being busy. And I think, obviously that applies professionally and personally.
Personally. Yeah.
Yes. So how do we shift? I mean, maybe you kind of already answered it. Maybe I'm trying to make it overcomplicated. But how do we shift our focus to, you have something called like from hustle culture to an anti-warrior approach.
Yeah.
How do we do? Well, first of all, what is the anti-warrior approach and how do we shift that focus?
Well, the anti-war is like just a clever way of saying busy isn't meant to be this elixir. Because I think a lot of people use busy as an excuse to distract from what's really important.
Right.
Either because they're afraid or they're obligated or they don't really know. A lot of people go through life without even thinking about what do I
Most
want.
people. Yes. My business coach would agree with you 1,000% is like most people are going through life on autopilot, never really even thinking, what do I want out of life? Who am I? What do I really care about? What's meaningful to me? We're on autopilot.
We're executing our calendar. And by the way, it's hard, right? Because I will say as a busy working mom, being a working mom is so hard.
Yes.
It is so hard because of, there aren't the structures in place for you to be able to handle all the things.
Right.
And because you got to be an amazing mom and you got to be an amazing
Professional.
employee. And it's very difficult. There's only so much time,
Right. Yeah.
Oh, and work out and watch your health and get good
and
sleep.
drink enough water and meditate. Yeah, we've all seen the list. Yes.
But like, this is what I keep saying, which is you cannot spreadsheet your way out of this.
Yeah.
So that's about making choices. And that's where it gets really hard because we want to have it all. And we can't have it all. So what I would say to that is this. There's two questions I tell people at the end of my talks to think about. And this is personal too. The first question is, what do you want? And that's a really good thing over, I drink a copious amount of coffee in the morning and I just write out, what do I really want? And I think that that's really a helpful thing. And I don't mean like, well, I don't know, maybe to you it's $1 billion. Maybe to someone else it's, I want to leave a legacy for my kids. I want to sell a bit. I don't know.
Right.
But write it out personally and professionally. Because then the first things that come to your mind are usually the ones that are really driving you internally. But the second question is, what's stopping you? And that's the more important question, because what's stopping you is where people start having the excuses. This is where your business coach is going to call you out on your bullshit. So,
yes.
Oh, it's my boss. If every excuse is external, then nothing's going to change.
Yeah.
I would look at that list and go, well, then I guess you're effed.
Yes.
I guess you're effed. I mean, like, God, I don't,
Right.
I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry. You just can't get what you want. Yeah.
Yeah. And usually
Too
that
bad.
kind of, and that's where people should get mad. Like, they should start getting angry and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And then we can start to really think about, like, so what could you do? If you could do something different, what would you do? If these weren't out of your control, what would you do? And then you can really start to brainstorm some answers. I would go through that type of an exercise with a business coach.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. What do I want and what's stopping me?
What's stopping you?
Yeah. Love it.
Good.
Okay. Well, this has been very insightful. Thank you so much for being here today. Very
thanks,
helpful
Holly.
stuff. Yes.
No, you're a great interviewer. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And everybody check out the book, Why Simple Wins.